Have you ever been like scrolling through your feed, maybe late at night, and you stumble upon some wild new health trend and you just stop and think, wait, is that actually a thing? Is it legit?
Happens all the time, right?
Totally.
Huh?
Well, if you're like us, always curious about the latest wellness movements, or maybe you've actually seen this thing called the sugar fasting diet popping
Yeah.
up in, online chats or social media, then you are definitely in the right place today.
Yeah, it's been getting some buzz.
It really has. And look, this isn't your standard low carb thing, not Atkins, not keto, and it's not traditional fasting either, like calorie restriction or intermittent fasting. We're talking about a diet that kind of surprisingly involves eating mostly sugars and fruits.
Primarily sugars and fruits, yeah.
Right, while strictly avoiding fats and proteins for specific short periods. It seems to have really gained momentum online, especially in, say, 2024 and 2025. So our mission today here on the Deep Dive is basically to unpack all of this. We want to look at the claims people are making, try to figure out where it even came from, explore the potential benefits people talk about, but also really dig into the significant risks. And we're basing this all on the sources you've shared with us.
Absolutely.
We really want to give you the clear, full picture, without just overwhelming you with info, help cut through that online noise.
Yeah, trying to get some clarity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hey, speaking of getting well informed on interesting topics like this, if you want more great info, you should definitely check out Mind Expansion Daily. They've got some fantastic stuff.
What's really fascinating, I think, about trends like this,
Yeah.
just how fast they can bubble up from online discussions. They often get way ahead of, well, any kind of serious scientific check or validation.
Right. The hype train leaves the station before the evidence even arrives.
Pretty much. So today we're going to try and look past that hype around the sugar fasting diet, really try to understand the ideas behind it, and importantly, what it might actually mean for someone thinking about trying it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this thing. If it's so unconventional, where did this diet even come from? How did it get so popular so quickly, especially online?
What is definitely a product of our times, of the digital age. It's pretty new, really only surfacing in the early 2020s.
So very recent.
Very recent. And its rise is largely down to social media influencers, various online wellness communities, places where people are constantly looking for the next big thing to optimize their health,
Ah, the optimization culture.
Exactly. And unlike, say, the Mediterranean diet or something with decades of research and clear founders, this is much more, well, grassroots isn't quite the right word, but it's driven by personal stories, anecdotes, shared experiences, not really clinical trials.
Okay, so it's not like there's a Dr. Sugarfast who wrote the book on this.
Not at all. It's more of a collective online phenomenon.
Yeah. So you might be thinking then, okay, is this just like a fancy juice cleanse? Or maybe just fruitarianism, because we've heard of those, right? They focus on fruit for detox or maybe spiritual reasons. How is this sugar fasting diet different?
That's really a good question, and the distinction is pretty crucial. While it might feel similar or draw some loose inspiration from those fruit-heavy ideas, the sugar fasting diet takes this sharp, radical turn.
How so?
Its defining feature is the explicit, and I mean strict exclusion, of all fats and all proteins while you're on it.
Wow, all of them.
All of them. So no oils, no nuts, no seeds, no avocado, no meat, fish, dairy, eggs, beans, lentils, none of it. Just simple carbohydrates, mostly from fruit.
That's intense.
It is. And here's where it gets even weirder. Some versions actually include refined sugars, like honey or maple syrup. Sometimes even starchy vegetables like potatoes are allowed alongside the fruit. It's a very, very specific and frankly unusual mix of what you can and absolutely cannot eat.
Okay, that is a fascinating twist. Focusing only on simple carbs, maybe even refined sugars, while totally ditching fats and proteins. Now, if we zoom out, you can kind of see how this might hook into current interests, right? People are really focused on metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, intermittent fasting.
Absolutely.
And we've seen people online calling it a reset for the body. That term gets thrown around a lot. What are the actual core principles people are trying to follow for this supposed reset?
Yeah, it definitely taps into that desire for a quick fix, a metabolic shift. And the principles, as you said, are quite specific. So, number one, primary focus is simple carbs. Lots of fruit, bananas, apples, berries are common fruit juices too. And like we said, sometimes those refined sugars sneak in.
Okay.
Number two, the exclusion principle. Fats and proteins are totally out, non-negotiable during the fast.
Strict. Got it.
Number three, duration. It's almost always short term. usually looking at maybe 3 to 7 days. It's definitely not meant to be a long-term way of eating.
Right, like a quick hit.
Exactly. Number 4, consumption pattern. People tend to eat frequent, small meals or snacks of fruit. The idea is to keep energy levels somewhat stable.
Makes sense with just carbs.
And finally, number 5, hydration. Big emphasis on drinking water, which, makes sense given fruit has a lot of water anyway, but staying hydrated is key.
So the claim then from people who promote this is that forcing your body to run only on glucose somehow resets it, maybe makes it more sensitive to insulin, improves metabolic flexibility, that's the body's ability to switch fuels efficiently.
That's the theory they put forward, yeah.
But hang on, if there aren't really standard rules, no official protocol, how consistent can any results possibly be? It seems like there'd be huge variations in what people actually do and experience, right?
That is a massive question mark hanging over this whole thing. You're absolutely right. The lack of standardization is a major issue. One person's sugar fast might be all whole fruits. Someone else might be downing gallons of juice, maybe even adding honey.
Totally different metabolic impact.
Completely different. And that makes it incredibly hard to say anything definitive about benefits or risks. Individual experiences are going to be all over the map. Some might feel great initially, others could feel awful or even run into problems.
Yeah, that lack of consistency is a big red flag for me. Okay, but let's get into the why. This is where it gets really interesting. Even without solid studies, proponents claim some pretty appealing benefits. What are they actually saying this diet does for you?
Well, the number one claim you usually hear is improved insulin sensitivity.
Yeah.
The thinking goes, if you only give your body simple carbs and remove all fat, maybe your cells get better at taking up glucose.
Is there any science that hints at that?
There's some tangential stuff. Our sources mentioned a 2019 study in Cell Metabolism looking at glucose-based diets. It suggested that short-term carb loading could potentially improve glucose uptake. But, and this is a big but.
There's always a but.
Always. This effect isn't unique to sugar fasting. You can see similar things with other very low-fat, high-carb approaches. So it's not some magic trick exclusive to this specific extreme diet.
Okay, so it's more about the low-fat, high-carb combo for a short time, not the sugar fast itself.
Yeah.
What about energy? People often say they feel like lighter, more energetic.
Yeah, the energy claim is pretty common too. And it kind of makes sense on the surface. Fruits provide quick digesting carbs.
Quick fuel.
Right. And we do see anecdotal reports online, forums, social media people talking about feeling light or having sustained energy. This is probably because eating small amounts of fruit frequently keeps blood sugar relatively stable, avoiding big energy crashes you might get from other eating patterns.
Okay. And digestion, hydration. Fruits are full of water and fiber. Seems logical. There might be benefits there.
Absolutely. Enhanced hydration and digestion often come up. The high water content is obviously hydrating. And the fiber, especially from things like apples, berries, pears, can definitely help with regularity.
Right.
There was a 2020 study in Nutrients looking at fruit-based diets generally, and it noted that this fiber could potentially help with things like constipation or feeling bloated. Could.
Okay. And then the big one for many people, short-term weight loss. I guess that's almost guaranteed if you cut out all fat and protein.
Well, yeah, it's likely. Fruit is relatively low in calories compared to fats and proteins. So if you drastically cut those calorie-dense foods, you'll probably create a calorie deficit and lose some weight, at least temporarily. A 2017 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition did find that fruit-heavy diets could lead to short-term weight reduction.
Okay. And I suppose the last thing is just, it sounds kind of simple.
That's definitely part of the appeal, simplicity and accessibility. Not much cooking, fruit is everywhere, usually not super expensive depending on what you choose. For someone looking for a quick, temporary reset without complicated rules or special foods, it probably seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I can absolutely see the appeal now. If you're feeling sluggish or want a quick kickstart, it promises that easy reset feeling everyone seems to be chasing these days.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where we really need to hit the brakes and look critically. While those potential upsides might sound nice, the highly restrictive nature and, crucially, the almost complete lack of solid scientific backing for this specific sugar fasting diet raise some very, very serious concerns. Understanding the why behind these risks is essential.
Okay, let's get into it. This is the hold on a minute moment. What are the big red flags? Why should people be really cautious here?
Okay, top of the list, nutrient deficiencies. This is probably the most obvious and significant risk. If you completely eliminate fats and proteins for even a few days, you're cutting out vital nutrients.
Like what specifically?
We're talking essential omega-3 fatty acids critical for your brain, inflammation control. Vitamin B12, you mainly get that from animal products, so cutting those out is risky for nerve function, making red blood cells. Iron, especially heme iron from meat. And maybe the biggest one, complete proteins, the essential amino acids your body needs to repair tissue, build muscle, make enzymes, hormones.
Wow. So basically everything your body needs to function properly long term.
It's exactly. A 2018 review in Nutrition Reviews specifically warned that prolonged fruit-only diets risk major deficiencies in amino acids and healthy fats. These aren't optional extras. They're fundamental for muscle and brain health.
Okay, so nutrient gaps are a huge issue. What about the sugar part? Eating only sugars, even natural fruit sugars. What does that do to your blood sugar levels? That sounds like a roller coaster.
It absolutely can be. That's the next major concern. Blood sugar spikes and crashes. Even though fruit sugars are natural, consuming them exclusively, especially in large amounts or as juice, can cause rapid swings in blood glucose.
Particularly risky for some people, I imagine.
Definitely. For anyone with insulin resistance, prediabetes, or type 1 or type 2 diabetes, this could be really problematic. A 2021 study in Diabetes Care pointed out that high-carb, very low-fat diets could actually worsen glycemic variability, meaning bigger, more dangerous swings in blood sugar for some individuals. Not exactly conducive to good metabolic health.
Yeah, that sounds counterproductive if you're aiming for metabolic balance. And what about just feeling satisfied? I mean, if you're not eating fat or protein, aren't you just going to be hungry all the time?
That's almost a guarantee. Limited satiety is a massive practical problem. Fat and protein are what primarily signal fullness to your brain and keep you feeling satisfied for longer.
Right. They digest slower.
Exactly. Take them away, and you're likely dealing with persistent hunger. We see this reflected in online discussions, too, people mentioning how incredibly hard it is to stick with it simply because they feel ravenous, which, ironically, can lead to binging or overeating when the fast ends, completely undoing any perceived benefits.
So it's clearly not sustainable. It sounds tough to follow. And even if you manage for a few days, what happens when you stop? Do you just bounce back or worse?
That brings us to the next point. Lack of long-term sustainability. It's just not designed for anything beyond a very short period. It's too restrictive. And yes, transitioning back can be tricky. You often see rapid weight regain, sometimes even more than what was lost. Plus, there's this idea of potentially confusing your metabolism with such extreme shifts in fuel sources, which a 2019 Journal of Obesity study touched on regarding extreme diets.
Metabolic confusion. That doesn't sound good.
Not ideal. And one more risk, especially for active people, potential muscle loss. If you're not taking in adequate protein, particularly if you're in a calorie deficit and still trying to exercise, your body might start breaking down muscle tissue to get the amino acids it needs for energy and basic functions.
Losing muscle while trying to get healthy, that's definitely not the goal.
Definitely not. A 2020 study in the Journal of Nutrition showed low-protein diets could indeed reduce muscle mass, especially in active folks.
Okay, wow. So summing up the downsides. Nutrient deficiencies, blood sugar chaos, constant hunger, totally unsustainable, and potential muscle loss. And underlying all of this, as you keep saying, is the lack of solid scientific proof for this specific diet.
Precisely.
Which really brings up a critical thinking point for all of us listening. How much weight should we really give to these compelling personal stories or anecdotal claims we see online when the hard scientific evidence just isn't there, especially when we're talking about something as important as our health?
That is the crucial question, isn't it? It's the core challenge with so many of these wellness trends that explode online. Personal experiences feel powerful, they resonate, but they simply can't replace controlled, rigorous scientific study.
Right. Anecdotes aren't data.
Exactly. They don't account for placebo effects, individual differences in metabolism, underlying health conditions, what else the person was doing, just so many variables. Without good evidence, we're essentially flying blind regarding safety, actual effectiveness, and what happens down the road. It really demands a healthy dose of skepticism, especially when claims sound almost magical and the approach is extreme.
That's such an important reminder for navigating all the health advice swirling around out there. Okay, so bearing all those risks and the lack of evidence in mind, what are the practical takeaways? If someone is still thinking about trying something like this, maybe they saw a friend do it, what do they absolutely need to know?
Caution and planning are paramount, based on our sources. The absolute #1 recommendation: talk to a professional first, a doctor, a registered dietitian, someone who knows your health history.
Especially if you have existing conditions.
Absolutely essential if you have any pre-existing condition: diabetes, kidney problems, eating disorder history, nutrient deficiencies, pregnancy. The list goes on. They need to assess if this is even remotely safe for you, personally.
Okay. And let's say, hypothetically, someone gets the okay for a very short attempt under guidance. Are there any ways to maybe lessen those pretty scary risks we talked about?
If, and it's a big if, it's done under supervision, focusing on nutrient-dense fruits might be slightly better. Think berries. They pack more vitamins and antioxidants per calorie than, say, just bananas. But the main thing is keep it incredibly short. We're talking maybe 1 to 3 days maximum.
Not the week-long versions you sometimes see mentioned.
Definitely not advisable without close medical supervision. And it must be followed immediately by returning to a balanced, nutrient-rich diet. Also, monitoring is key. Keep an eye on blood sugar if that's a concern. Watch for signs of dizziness or extreme fatigue. And absolutely ensure adequate hydration.
Right. And practically speaking, what about cost? Fruit can get expensive, but there are cheaper options too, right?
True. Budget-wise, things like apples, bananas, oranges tend to be more affordable. But again, variety is still important, even within the limited fruit choices. It helps slightly broaden the micronutrient intake and prevents sheer boredom, which can derail any diet.
Good point.
Look, ultimately, knowledge is great, but it's most powerful when we use it wisely, with discernment. The sugar fasting diet is a perfect example of this modern fascination with quick metabolic fixes and online trends. But it really throws into sharp relief the huge gap that often exists between a popular idea online and solid scientific understanding.
Yeah, it highlights that tension.
It does. So the bottom line remains, be cautious, question claims, prioritize evidence, and always consult professionals before making drastic changes to your diet. More research might shed light eventually, but for now, the risks seem to significantly outweigh the scientifically unproven benefits.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The sugar fasting diet, it's this fairly new trend, big online, where you eat basically just sugars and fruits, cutting out all fats and proteins for short bursts. There's this real pull between those anecdotal short-term benefits. People talk about maybe feeling energetic, maybe some quick weight loss.
The allure of the reset.
Exactly, that allure. Versus these really significant, scientifically unsupported risks. We've detailed the nutrient gaps, the blood sugar issues, the hunger, the lack of sustainability, even muscle loss. Our goal here at the Deep Dive, as always, is to give you the clearest insights from the info you've shared, help you sift through the noise, and feel genuinely well-informed.
Hopefully we've helped clarify things a bit.
I think so.
Yeah.
So maybe something to think about as you go about your week. How do you personally balance that appeal of a quick fix, that reset, against the, well, maybe less glamorous, but proven long-term path of balanced, sustainable nutrition? And what role does social media play in how you understand health? It's worth considering.
Definitely food for thought.
And listen, if you're passionate about digging deeper and expanding your knowledge like we are, and you want more deep dives into fascinating topics like this one, please do remember to visit Mind Expansion Daily. They offer really great information. And hey, while you're there or here, be sure to like and subscribe. We love bringing you these insights, and honestly, your support really helps us keep digging into these complex subjects.
We appreciate it.
We really do. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.